What's up, everybody? Welcome to Talking Ball, y'all. I am Cass Hargis. That is Jason Dewey and Lance Lacoste. Great Sunday evening. We appreciate you all hopping on here to talk a little Louisiana high school football. Round one of the playoffs happened on Friday night. We will get to all of the action across the state to set up some round two matchups. One stat of note that kind of caught my attention from Friday night, obviously the top seeds in each division earned byes, so they were not playing, but there were 80 games played in total. 66, the higher seeded team won the game, which seemed like a lot. But when you really think about it, with the higher seeds not playing or the top seeds not playing, maybe that there may be something to do with that. With them, some of those better teams in the playoff bracket, teams that maybe a little bit weaker than normal. But that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun week one, but I think we all know that week two is going to be where it's really at. I think this week two, I know we're still going to talk about week one on this one, but can't wait for Tuesday to really talk about week two, round two of the playoffs.
No, I agree.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of what we've come to expect with the way these brackets have kind of been separated, but some really exciting games nonetheless. Even some of those games that we're going to talk about tonight, those lower seeds pushing some of those higher seeds to the limit. So really fun show playing for you guys tonight.
No doubt. And to kick it off, speaking of games from Friday night, I know, Jason, you and I got to call this game that we're about to talk about. But Lutcher hosted Iota. Lutcher went on to win 49-7. One of the more impressive performances, not because of the score, but because of the way that Lutcher played, just how efficient and how clean it was. Really, if you're a Bulldog fan, and if you're Coach Jenkins, you could not probably be more proud. But instead of speaking for him, we'll just go ahead and have him talk to us. But we're thankful for Coach to be joining us. Coach, we appreciate you hopping on here. But let's get right into it. The game Friday night, from our perspective at least, that's what it looked like. It looked like, it was a well-oiled machine. You executed at an extremely high level, both offense, defense, and special teams. What was it from your perspective? How would you feel looking back on it?
Well, I just think it's been about our growth of our program this year. Obviously, we came into the year, the expectations always super high at Lutcher, but we knew we were going to have to replace some guys. We had some leaders from last year's team that we lost, a team that we thought was good enough probably to play for a state championship, and maybe some people would argue that the state championship game last year was played in round two of the playoffs with us and Cecilia. It was the tightest game Cecilia played all the way through. It was a 49-42 shootout where they had the ball and scored last, and that was kind of the way it fell. But we knew coming into this year we had a lot of young guys that needed to step up in some key positions, so we knew it was going to take some time to develop. And so despite all expectations, despite some of our struggles earlier, the best thing that we did was we just kind of conditioned this team to just keep improving, be better every week, be better every day. Never walk out that locker room and come back in without being better. So we pushed that all year long, and we said we wanted to be at our best when November rolled around. And so far, our two games in November have been really clean. The Week 10 game against South Lafourche, we played really well in the first half, kind of jumped out to a big lead on a team that went up and competed well with West Monroe this past week. But we really played as well as we've been played the last couple of weeks, and hopefully that can continue in the playoffs going forward. Like we said, we're just going to go out there and be our best. And if we can give our best each and every Friday night, we give ourselves a chance to win.
Yeah, Coach, seems like, quite a few ups and downs throughout the season. As, off air, you were talking about just guys figuring out their own kind of roles and where they fit in with the program. What's maybe something, always thinking back to my coaching days, week 11, week 12, you think about like, man, never thought we'd be this good at this back in August camp. Or maybe I thought I'd be better at this than maybe we panned out to be back in August camp. Like, is there something that really stands out that really, surprised you as your team grew together?
Well, I think the big thing for us is we thought we'd be really good on the offensive line. And it's just unfortunate for us. We just had so many injuries there, and we had to move guys around and put pieces together. And Friday night was really only the fourth time that the starting five have been together. And it's now been for 3 weeks straight that we've had those five guys on the field. And we just feel like what we thought they would be at the beginning of the year, we thought we'd be able to rely on that offensive line for our run game to develop those young skill guys. they're all coming together at the right time. But what's been even more beneficial is now those young guys that play receiver, like Johnny Jones and Leandre Booth, and our quarterback Timmy Charles. Those guys now have all the experience that they didn't have at the beginning of the year, where we're just going to try to hand it off and rely on a big offensive line. They had to grow up a lot sooner than they were supposed to. And now it just kind of seems like all the pieces are kind of fitting together. And the great thing about our kids is there's not a lot of selfishness in our program, which has been one of our calling cards here probably for the last 4 or 5 years. And I really attribute a lot of that to Lunch Winfield. He came into our program at the right time. He was a kid that just, even though he was our best player, he was never a guy who wanted to be the poster child. He wanted to do everything he did to make his teammates better, and his teammates bought into that. And now it's kind of developed as our culture of our program. So Jamilin Joseph, who's our starting running back, you can see him on the sideline cheering when he's out the game because we're bringing in our linebacker, Corey Ruiz, to come in and run the football. Or you'll see guys who last week, Thomas Roussel scores a big touchdown. He's a tight end who just does dirty work, and he gets to score a touchdown. And you see the sideline erupt because there's a guy who doesn't get the recognition, getting his chance to score a touchdown. And I really think that's been one of our keys to our development throughout this year is that culture that we have, a kind of unselfishness where guys are just willing to step up and play their role. And it's going a long way for us.
Speaking of guys that step up in roles, Cass and I got to call 2 games of yours, once this year and once last year. It was the Vanderbilt Catholic. And the guy that really stood out is Parquette. Parquette is just a really fun player to watch. You put him in, again, big defensive lineman, again, does an incredible job up front. And then you put him in at fullback, you let him get his touches. He goes and blocks and kicks out. He's a lot of fun to watch. But Ruiz at linebacker, Zabinski at linebacker. You have a really good front 7 as well. Can you tell us about the senior leadership on that defense? And again, having a guy like Parquette going run down the field on kickoffs and make play after play, or putting him in that fullback, what can you tell us about that senior leadership on that defense and their willingness to, again, kind of do whatever the team needs or requires at a specific time?
Well, you probably saw my face light up when you mentioned Parquette. And I think if you talk about him to anybody in our building, I'm not just talking about our football building, I'm talking about our school, that face would light up because he's just such a fun kid to be around. He works really hard. He's got a great charismatic character to him. He can kind of charm his way into a lot of situations. And he's just been a guy who got thrown into the role as a freshman. He started at nose guard in the quarterfinals. That's when he makes his first start of his career is in the quarterfinals in 2022. And he starts a semifinal in a state championship game his freshman year. And kind of the rest has been history. He's been one of the most dominant players in the state of Louisiana. And I tell people all the time, if he was 2 inches taller, if he was 6'2", he'd be a big-time recruit across the country because he's so physical. He's so athletic. The guy can do a standing backflip. Like, he's that guy. Like, there's nothing he can't – you swear there's nothing he can't do. Like, we had a kid a kicker got hurt at one point in the year, and it was like, Parquette, can you kick? Let me try. Yeah, he can kick too. But so last year when we started toying around with this idea of playing some of those defensive guys at running back and blocking situations, Parquette was like, you can't leave me out. I'll race anybody, any of these linebackers. Ruiz is one. Terry Snowden was another one. He says, I'll race any of them. I'm faster than all those guys. You got to give me a chance. So last year we made the deal with our defensive guys that were kind of playing all those different roles, which every one of you can create the first turnover, the first game that we use that package. You can get the carry. Parquette on the second series gets a strip sack and runs it for a touchdown. Well, he told that story to Coach Summerall, who was recruiting Rashad Sterling, and Coach Summerall is at the game, and when he sees Parquette score a touchdown, he starts yelling at me on the sideline, get him his carry, get him his carry. That's kind of how the Parquette at running back thing kind of got started. But, yeah, he's willing to do whatever it takes. And then you look over at some of those other guys with Coy and Dre. We had a story. Eric Ritchie came in and did a story with them, and they're like cavemen, really. Like they just like pain. They like to hit people. They like throwback guys, and they kind of like cavemen. It's like ball hit. That's fantastic. Like speaking one-word sentences, and then the crazy thing is they both like 4.0 students and great kids also, but on the football field, it's like meathead central. Let me just go hit something. And that's just those two guys, and they're fun to be around. And then Derek Jackson's kind of the other senior that's kind of been out there for us for 3 years in that role at safety, number 4. And he's had a great senior season. Capped it off week 10, senior night. He had 2 interceptions. He returned 1 for a touchdown. And I'm mad at him because this past Friday against Iota, right before half, I think it was, I told everybody on the sideline to back up because Derek's about to get an interception and the ball splits his numbers and he drops it. So,
Yeah. That's right.
We joked with him about that one on the sideline. Like I was getting my prognostications, my Notre Dame on, and he goes out there and drops the ball.
Yeah, you couldn't see that one coming. But when we could talk about Parkett all night long, but before we move on, I just want to mention I love the fact that he runs down on kickoff coverage, and he doesn't just run down there like for show.
No,
he made the first 2 tackles, and the third one he's looking for someone to hit. He ran out there in the second half, and you had to call him off the field. Like that's when your best player is doing that, you're doing something right.
Well, he breaks our kickoff huddle every time with violence. That's what he breaks the huddle on for all those guys. And look, Parkett's, that's how he is. And I'm fortunate. I've got another son who's on a team this year. He's a sophomore. He runs down and kickoffs with him, but he got baptized last year on a kickoff return unit with Parkett running down the field. Last year as a freshman, Parkett put him head over heels to the ground, and it was one of those highlight films. And everybody's looking around like, did he really just do that to the coach's kid? And I was laughing the whole time. So,
yeah, I love it. That's awesome. That is awesome. On the other side of the ball, you mentioned Timmy Charles as a freshman. Friday night, to me, may have been one of the best games that he played in maybe of his career. I know it's just been for 1 year, but the way that he ran the offense and distributed the ball, look, Stark, Joseph, like there's dudes everywhere, but he just looked like the point guard, getting the football out, and it wasn't like Iota was giving y'all, 5-yard hitches, outs, and he was just taking them, making the right read. That's got to be so satisfying and exciting as a coach for him going forward.
Yeah, it's a lot of growth. There's been a lot of growing pains. There's been a lot of times where it's like, take the gift, Timmy. Just take the gift. You don't have to throw it. You don't have to show everybody off your arm all the time and just try to throw it 50 yards down the field. It's okay to take the hitch. Just keep taking it. Let's keep getting first down. Sooner or later, we'll give you a chance. And when you get the chance, take it. So that's kind of been the thing. And Friday night, I think on our second drive, maybe he went 6 for 6 and really did a good job of distributing the ball and moving it around. And that was kind of the thing. He's super talented. He had a great game the week before running the football, which is not something that we kind of banked on coming into this year. We knew he was a good athlete, but he's still a 14-year-old playing varsity football, so you're not sure physically how much his body could take. But week 3 against Liberty, when we were 0-2, he kind of showed that ability and really broke off some big runs early on in the year. And we tried to use him sparingly to kind of keep him healthy and not get him banged up a lot. But it's playoff time, and it was good to see him kind of throw the ball around the way he did and make great decisions and move the ball around and get the ball to start, who's obviously a person you got to worry about with his speed, and Johnny Jones, his ability, his size, and Leandre coming back. Hopefully he can continue to develop. Made a great throw to Cade Randall, a senior basketball player who's really getting this is the first time he's really played football, and he's made some progress this year and gives us another little threat there. And Thomas Roussel, the big tight end, he made a great catch on the ball down by the goal line on a first down where it looked like Timmy was just trying to throw it away, but he saw him and Thomas went up and got it. So we've got some guys that's developed throughout the year in some different places, and it's just exciting when it all comes together. And the key to it all, I would say this is what I talked about earlier, is those 5 offensive linemen kind of getting healthy all at the same time. And Jaden Michael, the UL Lafayette commit at left tackle, number 67, he's big. He's physical. He can come down and close everything off. Hastings, 73. He's got people making business decisions at defensive end when he pulls and kicks out. He's burying people. They got to put chalk lines on the field sometimes when he pulls. So he's been tremendous for us. Logan Bourne, our center. He was a state champion in powerlifter, so he's not real tall, but he's 5'11", 6 foot, 265 pounds, and one of the strongest people in the state of Louisiana. So that's not a bad guy to have there. Matt Lambert started out the season at right tackle. He played last year at left guard. We bumped him back in. Super smart kid. Has been really physical. He's a kid that missed 4 weeks of the season. And then Quantez Joseph, who we thought we were going to play at tight end this year because we had some other guys coming back. And after week 2, after the struggles through the scrimmage, the jamboree, the first 2 weeks of the season, we told Quantez, look, it's best for us if you go back and play tackle again. And he started games for us since he was a sophomore on offensive line, and his body has changed, and he's a little lighter now than what he was at any point in the last 2 years, but plays super hard, super athletic, has allowed us to do a lot of things in the screen game and get him out on the perimeter and be able to chase down smaller bodies. So those 5 guys have been the key to our success here. As they've gotten all healthy at the same time and been able to put all of them on the field, we've been able to find some efficiency on offense.
Coach, I was a special teams coordinator in my coaching life. To be a consistent winner like you've been over the years, I know you've been good on special teams. Tell me, is there a philosophy or maybe an emphasis you have on special teams that keeps you guys kind of the glue of the team?
Well, I think one of the key things is a lot of times head coaches talk about special teams being important, but they don't give the time to it. So one of the things that we try to do is we try to make sure we allocate enough time to special teams every single day. We normally start practice with special teams to make sure that it's an emphasis. Basically our Wednesday practice is all special teams. There's very little of anything else on Wednesdays. It's a 40-minute special teams practice, basically, and we get about 15, 20 minutes of offense or defense on the back end of it. But we really put a lot of time into it. Our guys meet and watch film just like they do on offense and defense on special teams. And we really push our best players to play on special teams. And I think that's one of the keys. You see a guy like Parquette running down there on kickoff. Ruiz runs down on kickoff. Those guys, Sabinski, he's on almost every special team. And then you can kind of mix in some young guys that you are developing that kind of carve out a role that way. And we've had a lot of success the last couple of years. Cortland Taylor, who played at St. Charles Catholic, has been on my staff now for 6 years, I think now, and he runs our special teams, and he's committed to it, and he takes pride in it. And we've really had a great job of getting returns the last couple of years to the point that a lot of people don't even kick to us. I think last year, at one point, we had 5 different guys return kicks for touchdowns. So it was one of those things where if you tried to scheme it up to kick it away from a guy, we just had the scheme matched to whoever you were kicking it to. We ended up having 5 different guys return kicks for touchdowns last year. So we've had a kick return for a touchdown this year, and probably one of our games that we lost was against Vanderbilt. That game got turned because we had an 87-yard punt return for a touchdown that got called back that would have completely turned that game on its head and kind of lost the momentum there. But we take a lot of pride in it. We spend a lot of time on it, and Coach Taylor does a great job, and he gets buy-in from those kids, and the assistant coaches that help him out are all in on it. Coach Daigle kind of takes pride. He's our linebacker coach. He's our strength coach, and he's big on our punt return unit. That's kind of his baby, where he's going after the blocks and setting up the return. So a lot of buy-in from a lot of guys.
It's awesome. Love it.
Shout out to my guy, Cortland Taylor. I played ball with him back in the day at St. Charles. I wonder where he got some of that knowledge from, Coach. Maybe Coach Monica rubbed off on him a little bit. I know you've had some conversations with Coach as well. So,
yeah, it doesn't take far to find out if you're in the real parishes. If you can get some connection back to Coach Monica, which most of us all do in some type of way. Like I tell people about it. I've said it was a lifetime ago, but Coach Monica sat in that same chair I did in a different building, but he was the head coach at Lutcher back in the 70s. Yep. So we've kind of all been connected that way. Coach Forsythe's on my staff as well. Also played with Cortland. He played for Coach Monica. Coach Lee Roussel played for us at Lutcher, and then we Coach Monica. Both Coach Monicas, Nick and Frank, and came back and coached with us, and now he's getting ready. He's getting ready to make a run right here at Riverside. And Coach Stein and I have been great friends for a long time. Never worked together, but we talk every day.
So, Coach, I would be remiss if we talking about your team, but looking ahead, there's a game I kind of had circled coming into the playoffs, knowing it could come down to this. And, this Franklin Parish team is no joke, and I'm sure you've heard the stories and seen some tape on them. And maybe some of the most top-heavy Division I talent, regardless of which playoff bracket. Have you gotten to watch any tape on this team yet? And if so, what's going to be your message to you guys kind of coming out this week of preparation and taking that road trip? I don't think you guys have made a road trip quite like this season and playing a team of that caliber.
Well, we've been watching film since I finished talking to y'all on the field Friday night. As soon as I walked into the office, they were up on a big screen in the coach's office. So they've been on our minds since we walked off the field. But they're super talented. Man, it's staggering when you look at the amount of guys that they have. You talk about their quarterback, Zarian Ellis, who's committed to LSU to play corner. They've got a running back who's committed, who's got an LSU offer. And if that's not bad enough, you go back and you look, the other running back who's a sophomore actually led the team in rushing last year. He had 1,100 yards rushing, not the guy who got the LSU offer. So if that tells you something about the talent they have just touching the football in the backfield. Then you had Chris Addison, who's a Michigan State commitment. He's a edge rusher. Then you've got Taven Bell, who's a Texas State commitment as a defensive tackle. So, like, they've got headline guys, D1 guys, P4 guys as soon as you get off the bus. And then when you pull up their schedule and you see 60, 77, 60, 60, 60, they're scoring it in bunches. And they've been, since that loss early in the season to Washita Parish, they've been on a roll like nobody else. And that's the thing. Last year, they were a top seed, and everybody kind of had them with the talent that they had, and they kind of got upset by Iowa in the quarterfinals. And Iowa's been a program that's been kind of rolling the last couple of years, making deep runs into the playoffs. So we know it's going to be a tall task for us. It just kind of seems that's been our MO. We've kind of played these teams that are super talented early in the playoffs the last couple of years. Kind of goes back to, I think, 2021. We played a St. Martinville team with Stefan Blanco and all those cats, and they ended up losing in the semis. We played them in the quarters. We turned around and played them again the next year in the second round of the playoffs. And then we caught Opelousas early in the playoffs. We caught Cecilia early in the playoffs, and have been in wars with all of those guys. So hopefully that experience and playing all of these top teams kind of early in the playoffs, maybe it's time for one of them to switch back our way.
There you go. Just, hey, you're there. Just keep knocking. They're going to let you in at some point, right?
Yeah.
Just keep getting there.
Hey, you're in the ring. You got to throw a punch.
That's right. No, that's right. You're going to get hit, but you get hit back. Go get it.
That's it.
No doubt. Coach, we can't thank you enough for hopping on here and talking some ball with us here, taking some time out of your Sunday evening. We know you got your hands full with this Franklin Parish team, but I think they have their hands full too. So y'all go out there, I'm sure the Bulldog faithful is going to make that, about 3 hours from y'all. They're going to go represent well up there, and good luck, and hopefully we talk to you again soon.
Yeah, appreciate it. Anytime. I'll get on and talk any topic with y'all. Thank y'all.
We're happy. You guys, good luck, Coach.
There you go.
He's awesome. It's easy to see why that program is so good under his leadership. It's really, really good to see good guys like that doing well.
Some consistent players every year when you get to this time of the year, and it's always led by great people like him. It's really it's a consistent theme.
And listen, when I've talked to Cass about it, even talked to Coach Jenkins, I said, I know you think I'm probably full of it, because I even mentioned him when he got off the field the other day. When you go watch Lutcher football and you go watch a Coach Jenkins offense, there's something new that just going to be like, I can't wait to see this. Like, you see what he's brewing by the alignment, by the way he's moving guys around. It's like, here we go. I haven't seen him pull this one out. And it's just, there's something new, a new wrinkle every time. He's one of, I've been covering high school football for quite some time, and just one of the most fun, unique, dynamic offensive play callers you'll see in the entire state. It's just really fun to watch.
You would have loved Lance watching their kickoff team, because it was their starting defensive tackle, their starting linebacker, like 3 or 4 other guys and there was no plays off. They were just sprint. Like, it was really good to see.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's awesome. It's a defensive play. Why wouldn't it be?
You don't have to convince me. You don't have to convince me. All right, let's go to the brackets. We'll start right here in D1 non-select, the game that maybe stood out, at least to me, and maybe to you guys as well, the most was Mandeville going to Thibodeau and winning 48-27. I don't know that it was so much of that Mandeville won the game. Obviously, Thibodeau, a really good team, had a really good season under Coach Narcisse. These two teams played last year. Mandeville won. But Mandeville's freshman quarterback, I think we can stop calling him a freshman now, goes on the road in his first playoff game, 6 total touchdowns, 398 yards. He throws for 5 touchdowns. He runs for a touchdown. Mandeville wins 48-27. I think Thibodeau scored a touchdown late. So that Mandeville defense holds a really good Thibodeau offense. So essentially 21 points. Mandeville gets the reward of going to face Neville next week in round 2. But maybe Mandeville's best performance of the year last Friday night against Thibodeau.
Yeah, they get better every week, it feels like. As mentioned on this show, I was in Nashville at a D1 event with another D1 higher up, let's call him. But Jason DeMello, he left early Friday morning, and it was definitely worth him leaving the event early because his son Luke DeMello went off. I saw all of his highlights, all of his touchdowns. I mean, this kid can fly. And so Krukalor has been incredible. He's got some playmakers that make his life easy, like Luke DeMello, who can take a screen for 70 yards like he did. But yeah, and he also said this defense, this is a Thibodeau team that was scoring a lot of points all year, and then they come out and get shut down at home. And so this Mandeville team, I mean, it's a tall task for them looking ahead, but this is a really impressive group that easily could have been counted out early in the season. I think a lot of people did count them out early in the season, but here they are again, just winning football games, and they have a bright future.
41 unanswered points in this game for the Skippers Football Club. And look, it's definitely not a tall task for what's next, but sit back and enjoy the win for a moment. That was a huge win against a Thibodeau team we talked about, kind of trying to change the trajectory of their program under Coach Narcisse. It's unfortunate their season ends. The Tigers, great season, great starting season under Coach Narcisse. But look, you've got to credit this Skippers football team. I think when you lose an experienced starter like they did early on in the season, kind of trying to find your footing, trying to figure out what works and what success you're going to find. And boy, have they found it late in the season. So it's going to be interesting to see them go out and try to take another road trip. It's not an easy place to play in Neville. We've been watching games there all season. They've played some elite competition and have come out on top, have had one of the best 3-game stretches arguably in the entire state. So you're playing a really hot football team, and we'll probably dive into them a little bit more on Tuesday, but that should be a fun one coming up next Friday.
Yeah, no doubt. No matter what happens, again, we can talk more on Tuesday, but it's like no matter what happens for Mandeville this week, it's really hard to not look forward to next year and think about what can be for the Skippers team. But they're still playing, so let's see what they could do next week at Neville. Also on the bottom side of that D1 non-select bracket, Ouachita Parish and St. Amant. This is a game that we thought may be one of the best ones of the night. It definitely lived up to that billing. Ouachita wins 24-21. St. Amant makes the trip up to Monroe, loses by 3. Cooper Babin for St. Amant is still played extremely well. Quarterback for the Gators. Halftime, St. Amant comes out at half, kicks an onside kick down 7, recovers it, goes down to tie it at 14. Montrell Connor rushes for 62 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. They score on a drive in the fourth quarter to take the lead, in which they convert a big third and long. But the running back for Ouachita, Mighty Mouse Dade, rushes for 226 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, I think this is the time of the year where, you just start to see defenses show up, right? I mean, it's not a lot of high scores anymore. Some of those high-flying offenses, they start to get slowed down. This was a perfect example of it. St. Amant was scoring a lot of points all throughout the year, but this Ouachita defense traveled really well as their running game. Even the quarterback had 2 rushing touchdowns. And so I think this is, just that time of the year where you start to see those teams that play great defense and run the football find ways to prevail. They were good on special teams as well, Ouachita.
Well, this Washington team has been tested all year. So they played a lot of we talk about Neville, that's the district 2-5A. They've played a lot of these football clubs in tight games. Just haven't come away with these wins. And fortunately for them, this was not where they found themselves on top. We've known the potential that they've had all season. We've kind of been watching them throughout the year. We know Santa Moss District is no joke either, but this 2-5A district in general just seems to be kind of a cut above the majority of the state. And even though Babin had a pretty good game in this, we know this Gators football team has been a contender in that 5-5A district. Taking that trip is not easy. And Ouachita Parish is a team that we've kind of thought coming in could maybe turn a few heads, and they'll get an opportunity again next week when they take on Destrehan. That should be a fun one coming down the pipe, making that trip.
If you look back at Ouachita's schedule, they're in that 2-5A district. They played Pineville in week 10 and won 56-0. But their previous games against Ash, Neville, West Monroe, and Ruston, it's a heck of a 4-week gauntlet. They lost all of them. None of them, the biggest margin of victory was 14 to West Monroe. All the other games were one score. So this was a team that was in all of those games with, some of the powers of the state. You almost feel like they just couldn't wait to get out of district and go play somebody else. Like it didn't matter who it was. They were going to just exhale before they got out of district, and they went and played well and get a playoff win. I think this is the first time they've won a playoff game in a while too, from what I saw. Anything else in this bracket? I know Terrebonne and Natchitoches Central. Terrebonne wins in overtime, 27-24. Huge win for Terrebonne. Tough loss for Natchitoches Central. I think it was Terrebonne that scored late to tie it and then went on to win. They will face Southside next week.
That'd be a fun one.
I was just saying, man, that was my kind of upset alert game. Natchitoches Central almost proved me right, but shout out to Terrebonne. We've been on the Terrebonne bandwagon for a while. They just needed to kind of have this big victory. It feels like a breakthrough in their program, getting past this first round, and would love to see that running game get going against Southside.
Yeah, a big win for them, and Natchitoches Central, kind of a team that's been flying under the radar. Really solid offense. Defense kind of stepped up when they needed to. Just couldn't quite come away with it. Had to settle for 3 in overtime. I think it was Terrebonne ran a reverse, I believe, and it's kind of how it goes sometimes in overtime when you only have 10 yards to go. That's a different argument for another day. I think 10 yards is way too short, but what do I know? A few other things to look at, though. Shout out to our guy, Normal Guy, who's sitting in the chat. We see you. We appreciate you. Yeah, Zachary knocking off Salmon. I think Salmon's a team that's going to grow from that experience. And Zachary's just kind of a staple. And they're going to get to go play Denham Springs in a rematch from earlier in the season. East Ascension handles business. Guys, what shocked me was Westgate putting up 49.
Yeah.
49 and Holden at Airline offense has been so prolific to 14 points.
Well, I think that's
really
where
stands out.
I don't know that it surprised me they scored 49 because that's just life in 1-5A. It surprised me that Airline only scored 14. Airline's quarterback, I don't know if he got hurt during the game, but their receiver Darby played quarterback for most of the second half of that. I think the Airline quarterback got hurt.
Well, that would make sense. But a few others scanning. Parkway getting a big win. Onville tighter than what that game looked. 52-39 win over Slidell. But a game that I kind of alluded to might be a chance at an upset. Barb winning 49-21. A big win for that Barb football team. One of the best offenses probably in the state. But what about Jordan Griffin? 6 touchdowns in this game, 280 yards. He's got 12 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. Incredible baseball player on top of it. I think that Barb team is scary looking down the stretch.
Yeah, especially if you get that running game going with him. He is such. I've seen him. I've had the both the pleasure and unfortunate happenstance of coaching against him in baseball, and he is as advertised. I mean, unbelievable. He's going to LSU to play baseball. But what he's done the last 2 weeks at running back is extremely impressive. They got to make that trip up to Monroe. They go play West Monroe. That's going to be interesting to see how that West Monroe defense handles that Barb offense, who can score points in bunches. We'll stay in Division I and move over to the select side. Maybe the game of the night on that side had to be Brother Martin and Liberty. Brother Martin wins 17-16. Liberty had the ball in the fourth quarter with about 2 minutes left driving, They seemed to complete a pass on the sideline. I think it was originally called a catch. Refs got together, decided the player's foot was out of bounds. It was not a catch. Brother Martin gets the football and ends up kneeing it out. Just looking at the score, and look, this is a Liberty team that was really up and down. I think that their high point was the performance they put on against Zachary. But looking at this score, if you're Brother Martin, you're happy that your defense was able to pull a performance like this because you're going to need that defense. But you've got to get something going from your offense. And you can almost go into the game with Brother Martin thinking that your offense is going to score 24, 30 points, somewhere up in that range. The only score 17, I think, is probably a little bit disheartening for Coach Bonise, but extremely happy with the way his defense played.
I think of all these games, this was one of the more surprising ones, not because of who won, but I thought that Brother Martin would kind of have their way in this one. I mean, me and Jason got to watch this team play in Week 10. Feels like Brother Martin was playing their best football. So I guess, shout out to Liberty. Liberty obviously had a great game plan for their offense. Eastern Royal had a very quiet night, which you got to do some special stuff defensively to keep him quiet. But yeah, in the end, I mean, like you said, Brother Martin's defense, they were great last week when me and Jason got to see him. Brother Martin's defense got it done again this week. I mean, it kind of seemed like, Brother Martin was somewhat having a way that they did get out to an early lead. So maybe they got a little complacent in the second half, but either way, it's complimentary football. Brother Martin's offense isn't great that day. Their defense needs to come through like they did.
Yeah, I think Brother Martin, came through defensively when they needed to. Now they get to take on Alexandria on the road. That'll be a fun one looking forward. Guys, what about Captain Shreve taking the trip down to Hammond and putting up 61 points, 61-21 winning that game? We talked about Plater over and over and just said if you guys have not watched his highlight tape, anybody out there, just go watch it. It's like it's fun to watch. A young man's gotten, I believe it's over 4,000 yards the past 2 years. He just started playing running back last year. So a fun team to keep an eye on, but they're going to have to go play Catholic. So that'll be a tough draw. But what about that Acadiana Karen Crow game in that rematch, guys? 29-21 victory for Acadiana, and that went down to the wire. That went down.
That's exactly
the wire.
what I was about to say. I think 29-21. Acadiana threw the ball. Acadiana had to throw the ball a little bit to win that game.
And another one as well. Look, Bonneville and Riverdale. Bonneville having to come back again and win that one. But again,
first Bonneville playoff win since 1997.
Huge for them, and a brand new coach. Congrats to them.
Yep. Yeah, there was a lot of, outside of the Brother Martin, Liberty, and then Acadiana Karen Crow, not many close scores. Here I know Rummel shuts out Holy Cross 24-0. That one, I think it was very similar to the first game that they played, from what I gathered, where Rummel kind of controlled the game defensively, pulled away late. Those two backs for Rummel, and we can talk about we're going to talk about them again on Tuesday, but those two backs for Rummel with that defense, it's a scary team to face in the playoffs.
Yeah, really good defense too.
Yep.
We'll go to Division II non-select, where we just talked to Coach Jenkins about his Lutcher Bulldogs. In this bracket, there was one lower seed that won. Chalk wrestled away. That was Opelousas going to Pearl River and shutting Pearl River out 13-0. Franklin Parish wins big over Abbeville. Lutcher wins 49-7, like we mentioned, over Iota. I know we talked about Coach Jenkins and these Lutcher Bulldogs, but they looked about as good as you could want them to look on Friday night.
Yeah, I was just saying that's definitely a team that early in the season didn't feel like it was, Lutcher's best squad, but he talked about just some of the ups and downs they had, just figuring out they had some young guys, they had some injuries on the offensive line, and that's an easy spot to overlook at times, but nothing's better than when you got your five best offensive linemen healthy. And that's what he talked about, just the confidence that his team came with, and some of his role players really stepping up, and just the way this team has kind of grown together, it seems like, over the course of the season.
Yeah, and that's it. I got to watch them play against St. Charles earlier in the year. They were still shuffling in quarterbacks. They were trying to do a lot of different things, really struggled to stop that St. Charles rushing attack. It looked like a completely different team. And I know when you're talking about different quality opponent, when you're talking about the difference between Iota and St. Charles, who's sitting at number one in Division I select bracket, but regardless, and that's a young Iota team, a really young Iota team, and Cass and I kind of hit on that. Like, they'll be a much better team next year. They made it to the quarterfinals last year, kind of came in, a lot of injuries, not a ton of players. But regardless, like, you did your job. You accomplished what you needed to if you're Lutcher. And that game next week, we talked about it earlier, but it's really going to be a fun one to see those two teams face off in Lutcher and Franklin Parish.
Yeah, that is definitely going to be one of the best ones of the night.
How about Franklinton doing what they do as well, right? I mean, not shocking that they go get another big win. It feels like I'm sure I'm not exactly right here, but Franklinton feels like they were in like the exact same part of the bracket last year and did the exact same thing last year, right?
Yeah. I think you're right. I don't know what their seed was, but it feels very, very similar.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's not, it feels like it is. In that game, Jacob Crane, their quarterback, broke the Franklinton High School career passing record.
Yeah.
So good on him. But they have their hands full with Jennings, but a Franklinton North DeSoto quarterfinal could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And of course, Cecilia doing Cecilia type stuff again, exact same. This bracket just feels so similar to last year with Cecilia and Franklinton.
It does.
How exciting is that matchup going to be, Lakeshore versus Cecilia next week?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though, and again, rightfully so, I keep highlighting this Lutcher Franklin Parish game. I think that's the biggest game, but I think 1B has got to be Cecilia Lakeshore. Cecilia did the same thing last year. They went on the road every week and won. So now having to go on the road, play Lakeshore or Coach Indess team that's really been on top of it this season, I think that has a lot of potential to be an exciting one.
Absolutely. On the select side, we'll go to Division 2. Oh, that's the wrong one. Select Division 2. There we go. Where we had Northside won the first playoff game. I think it was since 1999. They beat LB Landry. St. Michael's beat Laranja 35-12. Laranja going into that game, Ryland James did not play. He actually had surgery on his knee last week, I believe it was. They were also missing 4 other guys. So that was kind of a skeleton crew. Laranja took to Baton Rouge. St. Michael's wins. John F. Kennedy beats Frederick Douglass 55-0. The Swamp Owls and the Wampus Cats. How did we miss this last week with this mascot matchup?
Great matchup. Great mascot matchup.
The best. Leesville wins 52-7, but nonetheless, Swamp Owls and Wampus Cats. That's best. That's the best. So this bracket we talked was kind of the top part of the bracket was the upper hand, and the better teams kind of seemed like they separated themselves. We'll find out more this week, but that's kind of how it played out.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talked to St. Michael's as kind of an under-radar team, so they played really well. We talked about JFK, John F. Kennedy. They have a lot of talent on that team, so that sets up a big matchup. But they came out and obviously played really well as expected. And then Coach Sprunk at Haynes Academy. It's the first playoff win in history of Haynes Academy. And so great job by those guys.
Yeah, and when you look at a few of these games as well, Northside winning that game against Landry, guys, they had to come back late. Landry scored a touchdown with around 3 minutes left, and that Northside squad had to come back and win that game late on top of what Cass is saying, not having won a playoff game in a long time. Now they get the unenviable task of going to Thomas Dupuy Jr. Memorial Stadium and playing St. Charles a second consecutive year on the road. Lance and I called that game last year, and I'll tell you what, that Northside team has athletes. They have talent. They're super athletic. But again, you know when you play St. Charles, they're going to play sound defense, and I think that'll be it. It could be interesting, but it's going to take. And look, the coach at Northside, of course, is Coach Jacquard Carter, who was head coach at LCA, right? So he's got some experience in some big games as well. Bel Air beating Patrick Taylor, going to play Loyola Prep. kind of started digging into this Bel Air team, guys. They got some talent. Like they got some athletes, some athleticism, and Loyola Prep has definitely answered the call quite a few times this season. But this will be a fun one to watch and see if Bel Air can take that road trip and push a Loyola team that seems to just score an infinite amount of points regardless of who they play.
Yeah, just to keep scoring. But yeah, this bracket, and I feel like the playoffs, as fun as round one can be, and you start looking at matchups with the way it's set up now with the buys. I think round two is the round where it almost feels like, okay, now the playoffs start in some weird way. So there's some really good matchups that's going to be happening next week. Let's go to the non-select side, and we will go to Division 3 on the non-select side. If I could find it. There you go. And we've got number 1 seed Gene is going to host St. Helena. This is St. Helena team that won that district with Pope and North Lake Christian, kind of out of nowhere. Extremely talented, extremely athletic. They beat Avoyles 58-26. The other lower seed to beat a higher seed was Kaplan, beating Pine 33-18. Pine had such a good year, finished the year 7-3. Kaplan makes a trip over from Southwest Louisiana and gets a big win on the road. But maybe the game of the night, the matchup of the night, this was a rematch happening in the northern part of the state. 14 seed Manny hosting Red River. Manny wins 35-27.
Yeah, I was looking at the Union Parish. I mean, some of this is, I think, kind of what is expected again is in this round. But Union Parish seems hot, a team that I'm sure Erath is not excited to get in that second round. Erath coming off of a great season, and then Oak Grove's the other one down towards the bottom. Everybody knows they're probably the toughest 6th seed you'll ever find in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that Union Parish team, again, big, physical football team, Erath, undefeated regular season, and then you get to play Union Parish. So I think it's not an easy draw for them by any means. One that's not going to be as highlighted or talked about, but really interesting is Marksville taking on Mansfield. Those two teams, Marksville, a team that's been very quietly successful this season, 8-2 regular season, pick up another win. Mansfield, again, I really highlighted their win earlier in the year. Week 1 came down 35 points against Minden in one of the most fantastic finishes you'll ever see in high school football. So that's going to be an interesting one. But talked about Manny earlier, guys. Manny was winless a year ago.
Yeah.
It's a winless football team, and the job that Coach Hassel has done with his Manny Tigers. Again, I believe he was at Red River last year. I could be mistaken on that. So, again, kind of an added layer to it as well. But, really, really an impressive job that he's done with his staff. And, guys, Donaldsonville blanking Westlake, really impressed with that one. And they get to go take on Sterlington now. Sterlington is a team that's been, I don't want to say quiet, but, they don't feel like they've been getting the recognition as many teams have. But Sterlington won the state title a year ago for a reason. Very good football team. So that'll be a fascinating matchup.
Yeah, that feels like that bracket's starting to kind of pick up a little bit too when it gets to these round 2 matchups. In the select Division 3 bracket, we had chalk all the way to the bottom of the bracket, where the 18 seed De La Salle Cavaliers traveled to Baton Rouge to take on Episcopal. De La Salle wins 45-14. This was one we talked last Tuesday when previewing the matchup. De La Salle, and I don't want to call them underseeded because the system is what it is, and this is where they're seeded. But felt like as an 18 seed, with the schedule they played, with just how physical they are, how athletic they are, this felt like you could kind of see this coming. I don't know that we saw 45-14 coming, but this is not a shock by no means that De La Salle won this game.
Yeah, De La Salle played a really tough 9-district schedule. That's the reason why they're an 18th seed. Anybody that follows the season knows that. And this is that time of the year where you look back and you're thankful that you played such a tough schedule, because you go into these type of matchups in your division and you are just more battle tested, more physical, than your opponents. And so, yeah, great to see that for Coach Graham Jarrett and his coaching staff. They do an unbelievable job. And so that sets up a great matchup with them next week in Notre Dame. The other ones I was looking at, Northlake Christian, 59-20 over St. Louis Catholic. Not shocked by it, but, man, for them to be so big and physical, finding 59 points, that's another matchup that I'm really looking forward to next week when you see their big physical running game going up against Elijah Haven and that Dunham squad. And then the close one I really had my eyes on. Go ahead.
No, Northlake ran 22 plays. They ran 22 plays and scored 59 points. Yeah.
It's not bad night offensively.
Efficiency. But the one I was really looking close to was Pope John Paul. I was cheering for Coach Pye getting those guys. Low-scoring game as expected. Couldn't quite get over the hump there. They lost the Slaughter Community Charter 21-17.
Yeah, I mean, that one's a bit surprising. Although, Slaughter was a team that's had a really successful regular season. Looking at some of these next round matchups, the Catholic New Iberia taking on Bunkie. That's a fun one coming down the stretch. Dunham North Lake Christian coming up next round. Game I'll be at. Newman taking on Menard should be a fun one. And to your point about De La Salle, though, De La Salle is a team that changed quarterbacks in the middle of the year. I think that's really been kind of the catalyst for them kind of find themselves offensively as well. And look, they're a really physical football team. I think that's a tough draw for Notre Dame. And Notre Dame is a team. I think I sent you guys that stat earlier. I think what's it been over the last 20 years? They haven't been
8 seed.
I'll tell you.
Below an 8 seed. That's unbelievable. But again, that's the kind of job that Coach Cook. It's 9. Yeah, so a 9 seed in 2023 is the lowest they've been under Coach Cook, like in recent history. It's an unbelievable job, but it's a consistent program and powerhouse in the state.
Yeah, that is extremely impressive. That is going to be a very interesting matchup next week. On the non-select side, we'll go to Division 4. And really, when you look at this first round, like we said, 66 of the 80 teams that won were the higher seeded team. But it feels like in the lower divisions that was even more pronounced for whatever reason, but just a lot of big scores, a lot of blowouts. West St. Mary was the closest game. They beat Bazille 28-22. But a lot of blowouts elsewhere in that bracket. Grand Lake wins 61-18 over Montgomery. Jason, I know you had your eye on Montgomery.
Yep.
Look, man. We've been talking about the other team too, right? We've been talking about Grand Lake as well.
Yeah.
So in their defense. So look, their defense showed up to play. An impressive game. Impressive round 1 win for them.
Yep. The ones I was looking at that I wasn't surprised by, but I think they could be a problem moving forward is West St. John and Ferry Day, 2 teams that have had solid. They play really tough schedules. That's why they are where they are. But I think those 2 teams that I wouldn't want to face in the second round. You can see their big scores as well.
And I hate to do the let's look ahead kind of thing, but I mean, God, some really fun matchups in this. You got Haynesville, Homer in this next round. Again, that's one of the longest rivalries in the state.
Yeah.
So like that should be a fun one. Elton, North Iberville. Elton with that, power run game with Macklin, Lemoyne, and North Iberville with just a plethora of athleticism on both sides of the football. I got a lot of guys playing 2 ways. East Feliciana has been a team that has had a really successful regular season, and they're going to be taking on Faraday, which is another really athletic team. Grand Lake, Jeanerette, West St. John, Mangum. There's a lot of fun football to be played in this next round.
Yeah, this was these brackets were kind of the ones where you can look and say, okay, now the playoffs start. Like this is the week that the playoffs start. Teams that look, going out in round 1 and taking care of business and doing what you're supposed to do. There's something to be said for that too. Because again, if you don't have a bye, you're not guaranteed to win. I mean, I know that's captain obvious, but you still got to go play. And these teams have done it. These teams done it. It sets up some really nice matchups this week. The last bracket we'll take a look at is the select Division 4 bracket here, where Opelousas Catholic beats Ascension Christian 35-7. St. Edmund puts up 62 points on Lincoln Prep. This is St. Edmund offense that scored in bunches all year long. That did not change in the playoffs. St. Frederick wins big over Cedar Creek. The Kentwood Kangaroos move on. They beat Vermilion Catholic 28-13 in a game where, if you look at the records, you might have thought that game may have had a bigger point differential, but that's a Vermilion Catholic team that's extremely proud, coming off state championship. Tough year for those guys. They are going to be back and better, no doubt, next year under Coach Brock Prejean. But Kentwood moves on nonetheless. And then Southern Lab with a big win over Central Catholic.
Yeah, impressive showing, I actually thought, from Vermilion Catholic, keeping it close there with Kentwood. I mean, Kentwood's a really good team. They played a tough schedule. And so, yeah, I mean, some more of the same here, like you said, in the first round, but you skipped over the best one, St. Mary's Tiger Pride.
I was waiting on you.
Big win on the road over St. John. So that's a team that, again, has gotten really has gotten better over the course of the year. Coach Keaton C. Strong, their team's led by his son, the sophomore quarterback. So they're putting up more and more points every week.
And I watched that St. John team play against North Iberville earlier in the year. That's a good football team. So that's not an easy game to go on the road and win. So congratulations to them. And it'd be interesting to see the next round. But when you look elsewhere, some interesting games to look at. Washita Christian taking on Southern Lab should be fun. St. Edmunds playing Covenant Christian. Really excited to see that one. We know Covenant Christian. Cash, you got to see them up close. A really good football team.
They are. Yep.
They've been a good football team, though. Taking on St. Edmunds, a team that's been lighting it up offensively. I think that's a fun one. But, guys, none other than the number 1 seed, Westminster Christian, taking on Opelousas Catholic. Guys, this was a 2-point game earlier in the season. Again, who knows if these teams look any different than earlier in the season, but everybody gets better as they progress throughout the year. So I'm really fascinated to see round 2 as these two teams square up yet again after a 2-point escape for Westminster Christian earlier in the year.
Yeah, that is going to be an interesting matchup. It's just funny how the brackets work out sometimes like that, where you have two teams that seemingly look to be evenly matched. One's a 1 seed, one's a 16 seed, and then here we are playing in the second round. So that's the look at what happened on Friday night and kind of a peek ahead to what round 2 looks like. One thing that I'm looking forward to seeing on Friday in round 2 is how do the teams that had buys handle the bye week and how do they come out and play? And I'll say this for LCA. LCA actually had 2 weeks in a row where they did not play. They had a game get forfeited, and then they get the bye. So it's been a while for them. How are they going to be coming out after having 2 weeks off? But, yeah, the team put buys. How do you handle that bye? And sometimes for some of these teams, it may be better to go play and continue rolling and stay hot. Like as we saw with Letcher on Friday, the way that team played was extremely impressive, regardless of who the opponent was. The main thing is that just to stay healthy. So how do these teams handle buys be something I'm looking for.
I think every team's just different in their own way when it comes to these buys. It's easy to try to make up whether it's better or not better. Mm-hmm. But, certainly I was going to say, I think a team like Letcher, just talking to Coach Jenkins, feels like them not having a bye was perfect for those guys. They're continuing to get better and better from week to week. I think there's other teams, though, like, Shaw had a couple tough weeks in the season. They probably needed a bye. They probably needed a week to just kind of recoup, get back to the basics, And so St. Charles Catholic is another one that they finished the season really strong with a couple tough matchups. Like that bye week probably benefited a team like them, So I just think that every team is kind of different based on just where they are. Injuries could play a huge factor. That bye week, of course, gives you a chance to get some guys back, and typically guys don't get hurt during a bye week too. So that's always a factor as well.
Yeah, and when you talk about like how this kind of factors in as well, when you have a younger team, like do you actually want that extra game to kind of get them those game reps, that experience? How does that kind of play in? Anytime you see a fastball on the field, it's going to be different than when you're seeing it in practice reps. So you never quite can replicate that game speed in practice. So I think that'll be interesting. Guys, I'm looking at some of these matchups. There's some tough draws for some of these higher seeds. And I think this is the week when you say legitimately we're going to see some of these upsets happen. I think it was a bit of a stretch. We had to look very closely at some of the matchups and say maybe this team, maybe that team. We talked about we talked about Natchez Central being potentially a team, about Barb. We said, Covington going up there to Parkway maybe because their defense, and they still kind of got, handled pretty easily based on the scoreboard at least. But I think there's a lot more tangible evidence to allude to some of these teams pulling off upsets in round 2. And when you look last year, Lutcher was one of the top seeds in the tournament, and they get knocked off by a Cecilia team that went on a run. So, I think really this is going to be a week where you're going to say, well, maybe they didn't have the PowerPoints, maybe they didn't have the ratings coming in, but this is definitely a team that can make a legitimate run. And Cecilia's in that list as well. Cecilia, again, lower seed, make another trip as well. I think this will be a really fun. This might be the most fun round to watch in this postseason.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is you kind of point to this round and say, okay, now we go and we're going to get some good stuff, especially with the way, again, with the PowerPoints and how. Look, if you're going to play a really tough schedule and you're going to lose games, it's going to make you better as a football team. It just might not reflect it in the power rating. So even for these 1 seeds that have to face some really tough 16 or 17 seeds, like there's some teams that are maybe underseeded because of the schedule they played. Round 2 is going to be a whole heck of a lot of fun.
No doubt.
All right, and that's anything else before we kick it off? No, that was good. Looking back at round 1.
Oh, share, subscribe, follow. Wait until the very end to do it, but like, share, follow, subscribe, follow the Facebook page. Please follow the Facebook page. We are still 40-something people short. Need 100.
We can do it. I think the most disappointing thing, though, moving on, is that we have no more Swamp Owls and no more Wampus Cats to play. That was.
I mean, that's a beautiful matchup, mascot matchup, though. There's got to be some other ones. There's got to be some other ones.
We got Snoopy back next week.
Snoopy comes back, but we've got the Kangaroos and the Blue Gators.
Ooh, good Blue Gators.
Vikings and we got Vikings and Comets. Who else? I'm trying to see. I'm trying to take a quick scan and see if there's any other ones. No, I mean that might be one of the better ones that you just hit on.
Well, of course.
Oh wait, we got. Hey, look, we got some Griffins and some Dragons this week. That'll be interesting.
A lot of mythological creatures.
North DeSoto DeRitter, we got the Griffins versus the Dragons. So that'll be a fun mascot game.
There we go. That'll be good. So get all the hard hitting stuff. Here we go. But you can catch us on Tuesday, 8:05, right here on X, YouTube, or VSN Live. We will take a deep dive into round 2 of the LHSAA football playoffs, as we're in the thick of it now. Again, the top seeds in each bracket will join the party on this Friday and see what we got. It's definitely going to be a fun week of football in the state of Louisiana. Thank you all so much for watching Talking Ball. I am Cass Hardis, that's Jason Dewey and Lance Lacoste. We will see y'all on Tuesday night.